There's a moment in every person's life when the ordinary suddenly feels unbearable. It doesn't happen overnight and it rarely announces itself with fanfare. Instead, it creeps in quietly like a subtle itch you can't ignore. You wake up one morning and realize that the routines you once accepted without question now feel suffocating. The same old conversations, the predictable commutes, the endless cycle of working for a paycheck just to make it to the weekend. What used to be normal now feels like a cage. If you're feeling this discomfort, you're not broken. In fact, you're experiencing the first undeniable sign that you're already walking the path toward wealth, even if your bank account hasn't caught up yet. This isn't just frustration with your job or boredom with your surroundings. It's a deeper, almost primal rejection of mediocrity. You start to notice how much time you spent tolerating things that don't serve you. Maybe it's the way you used to scroll through your phone for hours, numbing yourself with mindless entertainment. Maybe it's the way you go along with plans you didn't care about, just to avoid rocking the boat. But now, every wasted minute feels like a betrayal of your potential. You can't stand the thought of living on autopilot anymore. The urge to break free from the ordinary becomes impossible to ignore. This awakening is more than a mood swing, it's a shift in identity. You begin to see yourself differently, almost as if you're watching your old self from a distance. The habits, the people, the beliefs that once felt comfortable now seem out of place. You start questioning why you ever settled for less, why you ever believed that good enough was truly enough. The discomfort grows not because your circumstances have changed, but because you have. Your mind is quietly rebelling against anything that doesn't align with who you're becoming. And here's the secret most people never realize. This discomfort is a gift. It's the mind's way of telling you that you're ready for more. It's the first spark of ambition, the first sign that the seed of wealth has been planted deep within your subconscious. Every great fortune, every legendary success story began with this same sense of restlessness. The world's most successful people weren't born with a silver spoon. They were born with a refusal to accept mediocrity as their destiny. You might notice that you're no longer impressed by surface-level achievements. Flashy cars, designer clothes, and empty status symbols lose their appeal. Instead, you crave substance. You want to know what's real, what's lasting, what actually matters. Small talk becomes intolerable. You find yourself seeking out deeper conversations, hungering for knowledge, and searching for strategies that can move you forward. The desire for freedom, real freedom, not just financial but mental and emotional, starts to overshadow every other want. This is the turning point. The discomfort you feel is not a sign to retreat or numb yourself with distractions. It's a call to action. It's your mind's way of rejecting the habits and mindsets that kept you stuck. You begin to say, "This is not who I am." And with that declaration, you start to shed the layers of your old identity. You stop making excuses for why things can't change. You stop blaming your circumstances, your upbringing, or your luck. Instead, you start to take ownership of your future. The truth is, most people will never reach this stage. They'll spend their lives justifying mediocrity, convincing themselves that comfort is the same as happiness. But if you're feeling this discomfort, you're already ahead of the curve. You're already on the path that leads to wealth, not just in money, but in mindset, in purpose, and in legacy. The discomfort is proof that you're evolving, that you're no longer willing to settle for a life that doesn't excite you. And that, more than any external sign, is the first and most powerful indicator that you're destined for something greater. But this is only the beginning, because once you start rejecting mediocrity, something else begins to shift: your relationship with time, and that's where the journey truly accelerates. There's a moment, often subtle but impossible to ignore, when your relationship with time transforms. It's not just about being busy or having a packed schedule. This is something deeper, almost spiritual. You begin to see time for what it truly is, the most valuable currency you'll ever possess. Suddenly, every wasted minute feels like a theft from your own future. The hours you once spent drifting through distractions, lost in endless scrolling or pointless conversations, now feel like opportunities slipping through your fingers. If you're noticing this shift, you're already moving into a mindset that separates the wealthy from the wishful. You start to realize that time is the one resource you can never get back. Money can be earned, lost, and earned again. Opportunities can come and go, but time once spent is gone forever. This realization doesn't just make you anxious, it makes you intentional. You begin to guard your time with a seriousness that others might not understand. Invitations to events that don't align with your goals become easier to decline. You find yourself saying no more often, not out of arrogance, but out of respect for your own vision. Every no to a distraction is a yes to your destiny. This is the mindset of those who build legacies. The average person lives for the weekend, counting down the days until they can escape their reality, but you start to live for your vision. You understand that an hour spent building your future is worth more than a year spent wishing for change. The idea of killing time becomes almost offensive. You no longer see time as something to be filled, but as something to be invested. Each moment is a brick in the foundation of the life you're constructing. You become almost allergic to idle conversation and mindless entertainment. The endless cycle of gossip, the lure of viral videos, the temptation to scroll just a little longer, these things lose their grip on you. You start to notice how much energy is drained by people who have no ambition, by activities that add nothing to your growth. Protecting your time becomes a form of self-respect. You realize that your attention is a form of wealth, and whoever controls your attention controls your outcomes. This is why the wealthy, the truly successful, are so fiercely protective of their schedules. They understand that time is the great equalizer. No matter where you start, everyone gets the same 24 hours in a day. The difference is in how you use them. The poor spend time, the average trade it for fleeting pleasure, but the wealthy invest it, turning every hour into an asset that compounds over years. You begin to see your calendar as a reflection of your priorities. If something doesn't move you closer to your goals, it simply doesn't make the cut. You might notice that you're no longer available to people who drain your spirit or dull your edge. The invitations to hang out just for the sake of it, the requests to join in on distractions, the pressure to conform to other people's timelines, all of it starts to feel like noise. You become more selective, not just with your time, but with your energy. You understand that every interaction, every commitment, every yes you give is an investment in your future. And you're no longer willing to invest in anything that doesn't pay dividends in growth, learning, or progress. This shift isn't always easy. You might face criticism from those who don't understand your new priorities. Friends may accuse you of being distant, family might say you're too focused, and society will always try to pull you back into the comfort of the crowd. But you know something they don't: time is the only asset you can't afford to waste. Every second you protect is a second you can use to build, to learn, to create, to move closer to the life you envision. You start to see the world differently. Where others see endless hours to fill, you see a finite window of opportunity. Where others are content to drift, you are determined to direct. You become intentional with your mornings, purposeful with your evenings, and strategic with every block of time in between. You realize that the man who controls his attention, who masters his schedule, who invests his hours wisely, will always control his outcomes, no matter what obstacles stand in his way. This is the sacredness of time. It's not about being busy for the sake of being busy. It's about aligning every moment with your mission. It's about understanding that your future is being built, not in grand gestures, but in the small, consistent choices you make every single day. The discipline to say no to what doesn't matter is what creates the space for what does. And as you continue to honor your time, you'll find that opportunities, resources, and even people begin to align with your vision. But this is just the next step. Because once you start treating time as sacred, another transformation begins. Your focus sharpens, your attention becomes a weapon, and you move from being reactive to being relentlessly intentional. And that, more than anything, is what sets the wealthy apart from the rest. In a world that's constantly screaming for your attention, the ability to focus has become a rare superpower. Most people drift through their days, pulled in 1,000 directions by notifications, endless feeds, and the relentless noise of modern life. But if you're starting to notice a shift, a growing desire to tune out the chaos and zero in on what truly matters, you're already separating yourself from the crowd. This is the next unmistakable sign that you're walking the path to wealth, the mastery of your own attention. It begins quietly. You start to realize just how much of your life has been spent reacting instead of creating. Every ping, every buzz, every headline is designed to hijack your mind to keep you distracted and docile. But something inside you rebels against this. You find yourself craving silence, seeking out moments where you can think deeply and work without interruption. The urge to check your phone every few minutes starts to fade. You become more interested in what you're building than in what everyone else is doing. This is not just about productivity, it's about power. The man who can control his attention can control his destiny. You start to see that every distraction is a thief, stealing not just your time but your potential. Where others are content to consume, you feel a growing need to create. You want to leave your mark, to produce something of value, to shape your own reality instead of being shaped by someone else's agenda. This is the mindset that turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. You begin to notice the difference between activity and progress. It's easy to be busy, to fill your day with tasks and errands and endless to-do lists. But true focus means cutting through the noise and directing your energy toward what actually moves the needle. You start to ask yourself, is this helping me get closer to my vision, or is it just keeping me occupied? The more you ask this question, the more ruthless you become with your attention. You stop giving your energy to things that don't matter, and you start investing it in the things that do. This shift is not always comfortable. You might feel a sense of withdrawal as you step back from the constant stimulation of social media, news, and entertainment. You might even feel a little lost at first, unsure of what to do with all the extra mental space you've created. But soon you discover something powerful. Focus is the hammer that breaks the chains of poverty. When you are focused, you become immune to manipulation. You stop comparing yourself to others because you're too busy building your own path. You stop chasing trends because you're committed to your own mission. As your focus sharpens, so does your sense of direction. You begin to move with purpose, making decisions based on your long-term goals rather than short-term impulses. The opinions of others lose their grip on you. You no longer need validation from the outside world because you're anchored by your own vision. This is the posture of someone who is not just hopping for wealth, but actively attracting it. You become a magnet for opportunities, resources, and relationships that align with your purpose. You also start to notice a shift in your energy. When you're scattered, your energy is diluted, spread thin across too many things. But when you're focused, your energy becomes concentrated, powerful, and almost unstoppable. You get more done in less time, not because you're working harder, but because you're working smarter. You learn to say no to the good so you can say yes to the great. Every decision, every action, every thought is filtered through the lens of your vision. This is the discipline that separates the wealthy from the wishful. Most people are content to drift, to let their attention be controlled by whatever is loudest or most urgent. But you are different. You are intentional. You are deliberate. You understand that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your focus. And as you continue to master your attention, you'll find that your results begin to multiply. The world starts to respond to your seriousness, to your commitment, to your unwavering dedication. But focus is not just about what you say yes to, it's also about what you say no to. You become more protective of your mental space, more selective about the information you consume, and more intentional about the people you allow into your life. You realize that not everyone deserves access to your mind. And not every idea is worth your consideration. This is how you build an environment that supports your growth rather than sabotages it. And as your focus deepens, something else begins to happen. You move from being reactive to being proactive. You stop waiting for opportunities to come to you and you start creating them. You stop hopping for change and you start making it happen. This is the true power of focus. It transforms you from a passive participant in life to an active architect of your own destiny. So if you're noticing that your attention is becoming sharper, your distractions are losing their appeal, and your desire to create is overpowering your urge to consume, know this: you are already on the path to wealth. You are developing the single most important skill in the modern world, the ability to focus. And with that skill, there is no limit to what you can achieve. But as your focus grows, so does your vision. And soon you'll find yourself thinking not just about today, but about the future you're building, one decision, one action, one focused hour at a time. There's a quiet revolution that happens in the mind of anyone destined for true wealth. It's the moment you stop thinking in days and start thinking in decades. While most people are obsessed with instant results, chasing quick wins, fast money, and the next big thing, you begin to see the world through a different lens. You realize that real wealth isn't built overnight. It's constructed brick by brick through a series of intentional choices that compound over time. If you're starting to think long-term, to build systems instead of chasing paychecks, you're already moving into the rare territory where fortunes are made. This shift is subtle at first. You might notice yourself questioning the value of short-term pleasures. The thrill of a spontaneous purchase, the rush of a quick reward, the comfort of immediate gratification, these things start to lose their shine. Instead, you find yourself asking, how will this decision pay me in 5 years? In 10? You begin to weigh every action, every investment, every relationship against the future you're building. The question is no longer, how does this make me feel right now? But what does this add to my legacy? You start to see the difference between income and assets. Income is what you earn today, assets are what continue to pay you tomorrow. The wealthy understand this distinction better than anyone. They don't just work for money, they build things that work for them. You begin to look for ways to create value that lasts. Maybe it's a skill you're developing, a business you're building, or a network you're nurturing. Each of these is an asset, a seed planted today that will bear fruit for years to come. This is where the mindset of leverage comes into play. You realize that your time is limited, but your value can be multiplied. Instead of trading hours for dollars, you start to look for ways to scale your impact. You might invest in systems that automate your work or in ideas that can be replicated without your constant involvement. You understand that the true path to wealth is not about working harder, but about working smarter, finding ways to do more with less, to create exponential results from focused effort. Money itself starts to look different to you. Where once you might have feared it or seen it as something to chase, now you respect it as a tool. You understand that money is not a master but a servant. It amplifies who you are and what you value. If you use it wisely, it can open doors, create opportunities, and build security for generations. But if you squander it on fleeting pleasures, it disappears as quickly as it came. This respect for money is a hallmark of those who are truly wealthy in mind, not just in bank balance. You also begin to build assets of character. You realize that who you are is just as important as what you have. Integrity, discipline, resilience, these are the foundations that support every empire. You start to invest in your own growth, knowing that the most valuable asset you'll ever own is your mindset. You read more, learn more, and surround yourself with people who challenge you to rise higher. You understand that every skill you master, every lesson you learn, every challenge you overcome adds to your personal portfolio of value. This long-term thinking changes the way you approach risk. You're no longer afraid of setbacks because you see them as part of the process. Every failure is a lesson, every obstacle an opportunity to refine your strategy. You stop looking for shortcuts and start embracing the journey. You know that the road to wealth is rarely straight, but every detour, every delay, every disappointment is shaping you into someone who can handle abundance when it arrives. You also become more patient. You understand that greatness takes time. The world is full of people who want everything now, but you're willing to wait, to build, to endure. You know that the most valuable things in life, health, relationships, legacy, cannot be rushed. You're willing to put in the work today for rewards that may not come for years. This patience is not passive, it's active, filled with purpose and direction. You're not waiting for luck, you're preparing for opportunity. As you continue to build, you start to see the compound effect in action. Small, consistent actions add up to massive results over time. Every disciplined day, every focused hour, every wise decision is a deposit into your future. You begin to trust the process, knowing that the seeds you plant today will become the forest you walk through tomorrow. This is the mindset that creates generational wealth, not just for yourself, but for those who come after you. And perhaps most importantly, you stop measuring your worth by what you consume and start measuring it by what you create. You realize that true wealth is not about having more, but about becoming more. It's about building something that lasts, something that matters, something that outlives you. This is the legacy mindset, the foundation of every great fortune. So if you find yourself thinking in years instead of days, building assets instead of chasing income, and respecting money as a tool for growth, know this: you are already on the path to wealth. You are building not just for today, but for a future that will thank you for your discipline, your vision, and your relentless commitment to the long game. But as your vision stretches further into the future, another transformation begins. Your identity starts to shift, and the way you speak to yourself becomes the engine that drives everything forward. And that's where the journey to true wealth takes on a whole new dimension. There's a transformation that happens quietly, often unnoticed by the outside world, but it's the most powerful shift of all. It's the moment your identity begins to change, not just how you act, but how you see yourself at the deepest level. If you're starting to notice your inner dialogue evolving, if the words you use to describe yourself are shifting from doubt to certainty, you're witnessing the next sign that you're walking the path to wealth. Because before any fortune is built in the world, it's built in the mind. For most people, self-talk is an invisible force, quietly shaping every decision, every risk, every dream. The average person's inner voice is filled with hesitation. I can't, maybe, hopefully, I'll try. These words are subtle chains holding you back from your true potential, but something changes when you begin to walk the path to wealth. You start to catch yourself in the act of self-doubt, and you refuse to let it stand. You replace I can't with I will. You swap maybe for I am. You stop hoping for things to happen and start declaring that they already are. This isn't just positive thinking. It's a complete rewiring of your identity. You begin to realize that your words are not just descriptions of your reality. They are the blueprints for your future. Every time you speak with conviction, every time you declare your intentions, you're programming your subconscious to seek out opportunities, to solve problems, to persist when others quit. You become the author of your own story, no longer waiting for permission or validation from the outside world. You might notice that your language becomes more precise, more powerful. You stop repeating stories of failure or limitation. You stop telling yourself that you're unlucky or that success is for other people. Instead, you start narrating your future with clarity and confidence. You say things like, I am becoming the kind of person who attracts wealth, or I am building habits that create abundance. These aren't just empty affirmations, they're statements of identity, and identity is the engine that drives behavior. As your self-talk evolves, so does your sense of responsibility. You stop blaming your background, your circumstances, or your past mistakes. You realize that the only thing standing between you and your goals is the story you tell yourself about what's possible. You take ownership of your journey, understanding that you are both the problem and the solution. This level of self-responsibility is rare, but it's the foundation of every lasting success. You also become more intentional about the voices you allow into your mind. You start to filter out negativity, whether it comes from others or from within. You seek out conversations that challenge you, that stretch your thinking, that inspire you to aim higher. You replace gossip with mentorship, complaints with commitments, and theory with execution. You understand that your environment is a reflection of your standards, and you raise those standards every day. This shift in identity is not always comfortable. There will be moments when your old self tries to pull you back, when doubt creeps in, when the temptation to settle for less feels overwhelming. But you learn to recognize these moments for what they are: tests of your new identity. Instead of shrinking, you stand taller. Instead of retreating, you move forward. You remind yourself that you are no longer the person who settles, who waits, who hopes for change. You are the person who creates it. You begin to see yourself as the sign you've been waiting for. You stop looking for external validation, for someone to tell you that you're on the right track. You realize that your actions, your habits, your mindset are the proof. You become the evidence of what's possible when someone decides to change from the inside out. This is the quiet confidence that the truly wealthy carry, not arrogance, but a deep sense of certainty that comes from knowing who you are and where you're going. Your self-talk becomes a tool for prophecy. You speak victory over your life even when the results haven't shown up yet. You visualize your goals as already accomplished, and you act as if success is inevitable. This isn't delusion, it's alignment. The world responds to those who move with conviction, who walk in advance of their results, who plan as if the vision is already real. You become magnetic, attracting opportunities, resources, and people who resonate with your energy. And as your identity shifts, so does your reality. You start to notice that your habits align with your new self-image. You make decisions from the perspective of your future self, not your current limitations. You ask, what would the person I'm becoming do in this situation? And you act accordingly. This is how you bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be, not by waiting for circumstances to change, but by changing yourself first. If you're experiencing this shift in self-talk, if you're becoming more intentional with your words, if you're starting to see yourself as the architect of your own destiny, know this: you are already on the path to wealth. The world may not see it yet, but the transformation is happening. And as your identity continues to evolve, every other part of your life will rise to meet it. But as your self-image grows, so does your environment. The people you surround yourself with, the conversations you engage in, the communities you choose, all begin to reflect your new standards. And that's where the next stage of your journey begins. There's a saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's repeated so often that it almost sounds cliché, but if you're truly on the path to wealth, you know there's a hidden truth in those words. As your mindset shifts and your standards rise, you start to notice something remarkable. Your circle begins to change. The conversations that once felt comfortable now seem empty. The people you used to call friends may still care about you, but you can feel the distance growing, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. This is the next undeniable sign that you're walking the path to wealth. You're outgrowing your old environment and seeking out new rooms where excellence is the baseline. It starts with a subtle discomfort. You find yourself less interested in gossip, small talk, and the endless rehashing of old stories. The energy of comfort-driven communities where everyone is content to stay the same begins to feel stifling. You crave more depth, more challenge, more inspiration. You want to be around people who are building, not just talking. People who are striving, not just surviving. This hunger for growth is a signal that your vision is expanding, and with it, your standards for who you allow into your life. You begin to realize that proximity is power. The people you surround yourself with either pull you forward or hold you back. Excellence is contagious, but so is mediocrity. If you spend your time with those who settle, you'll eventually settle too. But if you place yourself in rooms where ambition is the norm, where high standards are expected, you can't help but rise to the occasion. You start to seek out mentors, peers, and communities that challenge you to think bigger, act bolder, and dream beyond your current reality. This shift isn't always easy. Sometimes it means letting go of relationships that no longer serve your growth. It might mean spending less time with people who are comfortable with the status quo, even if you care about them. It can feel lonely at first, stepping away from the familiar and into the unknown. But you know deep down that you're not leaving people behind, you're moving toward the future you're meant to build. And as you do, you'll find that new connections begin to appear, almost as if the universe is responding to your new level of seriousness. You also become more intentional about the conversations you engage in. You start to notice the difference between talk that drains you and talk that fuels you. You seek out discussions that stretch your thinking, that challenge your assumptions, that expose you to new ideas and perspectives. You become a student of wealth, not just in terms of money, but in principle, energy, and legacy. You want to learn from those who have walked the path before you, who have built what you aspire to create. You realize that you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. In fact, you prefer not to be. You want to be surrounded by people who are further along, who can teach you, who can hold you accountable to your highest standards. You understand that humility is a strength, not a weakness. The willingness to learn, to ask questions, to admit what you don't know, these are the traits that accelerate your growth and multiply your results. As your circle upgrades, so does your exposure to new opportunities. You start to see doors open that you never even knew existed. You're introduced to ideas, resources, and networks that can fast-track your progress. The world of wealth is built on relationships, and every connection you make is a potential bridge to your next breakthrough. You begin to understand that who you know is just as important as what you know, and you invest in building genuine, mutually beneficial relationships. But this isn't just about networking or collecting business cards. It's about building a tribe, a community of like-minded individuals who share your values, your drive, and your commitment to growth. You support each other, challenge each other, and celebrate each other's wins. You become part of something bigger than yourself, and that sense of belonging fuels your ambition even further. You also become more protective of your energy. You realize that not everyone deserves access to your time, your attention, or your dreams. You set boundaries not out of ego, but out of respect for your mission. You understand that every yes to someone else is a no to your own goals, and you become more discerning about where you invest your energy. This process of upgrading your circle is ongoing. As you continue to grow, your standards will keep rising and your environment will keep evolving. You'll attract people who resonate with your vision, and you'll naturally drift away from those who don't. This is not a loss, it's a necessary part of the journey. The bigger your vision, the tighter your circle must be. If you're noticing these changes in your relationships, if you're seeking out new communities, if you're becoming more intentional about who you spend your time with, know this: you are already on the path to wealth. You're building a support system that will carry you forward, challenge you to rise, and hold you accountable to your highest potential. But as your circle evolves, so does your character. The challenges you face, the adversity you overcome, and the responsibility you embrace all become the next proving ground for the wealth you're destined to create. And that's where the journey continues. There's a truth about the path to wealth that most people never want to face. Adversity is not the enemy. In fact, it's the greatest teacher you'll ever have. If you're starting to notice that setbacks no longer break you, but instead build you, you're witnessing another unmistakable sign that you're on the path to lasting wealth. The world is full of people who fold under pressure, who see every obstacle as a reason to quit, but you're different. You're learning to see adversity as a form of training, a necessary crucible that forges the kind of character wealth demands. It begins with a shift in perspective. Where you once saw failure as something to avoid at all costs, you now see it as feedback. Every mistake, every disappointment, every closed door becomes a lesson. You stop resenting the hard times and start extracting wisdom from them. You realize that the most successful people in history weren't the ones who avoided pain. They were the ones who learned how to use it. They turned setbacks into stepping stones, losses into leverage, and resistance into results. This is not just about grit or toughness. It's about developing a kind of emotional resilience that can't be shaken by circumstances. You start to understand that wealth is not just about what you accumulate, but about what you can withstand. The bigger your vision, the greater the challenges you'll face. But instead of shrinking, you rise to meet them. You become the kind of person who can handle more and more responsibility, more pressure, more opportunity, because you've been tested and refined by adversity. You also begin to see the connection between character and capacity. Wealth is like water, it needs a strong container to hold it. If your character is weak, abundance will slip through your fingers. But if your character is strong, if you're disciplined, consistent, and trustworthy, you become a vessel that can handle greater and greater levels of success. You start to take pride in finishing what you start, in showing up even when you don't feel like it, in keeping your word even when no one is watching. These are the habits that build trust, and trust always precedes transfer. The universe, in its own mysterious way, rewards those who can be trusted with more. Responsibility becomes your new standard. You stop making excuses for why things didn't work out. You stop blaming others, your past, or your circumstances. Instead, you take full ownership of your results. You understand that the only way to change your life is to change yourself first. This level of accountability is rare, but it's the foundation of every lasting fortune. You become the kind of person who can be counted on, who delivers, who follows through. And as your reputation for reliability grows, so do your opportunities. Adversity also teaches you humility. It reminds you that you don't have all the answers, that you're always a student, always learning. You become more open to feedback, more willing to ask for help, more eager to grow. You realize that every challenge is an invitation to evolve, to become a better version of yourself. This humility is not weakness, it's wisdom. It keeps you grounded, focused, and hungry for improvement. You start to notice that your response to adversity sets you apart from the crowd. While others panic, you pause. While others complain, you recalibrate. While others give up, you get creative. You develop a kind of mental agility that allows you to pivot, to adapt, to find solutions where others see only problems. This is the mark of a true wealth builder, the ability to turn every obstacle into an opportunity. As your character strengthens, so does your influence. People begin to notice your consistency, your resilience, your ability to stay calm under pressure. You become a source of stability in a world that's constantly changing. Others look to you for guidance, for leadership, for inspiration. You realize that wealth is not just about what you have, but about who you become in the process. The journey itself is shaping you into someone who can handle abundance with grace and responsibility. You also start to see adversity as a filter. It separates those who are merely interested from those who are truly committed. Most people want the rewards of wealth, but few are willing to endure the refining fire that comes with it. If you're still standing, still striving, still growing in the face of challenges, you're proving to yourself and to the world that you're ready for more. This process is not glamorous. There are no shortcuts, no easy answers, no guarantees. But every time you choose to learn instead of quit, to grow instead of retreat, you're building a foundation that can't be shaken. You're becoming the kind of person who can be trusted with more, who can multiply what's given, who can turn adversity into advantage. If you're noticing that adversity no longer breaks you but builds you, know this: you are already on the path to wealth. You're developing the kind of character that attracts abundance, that sustains success, that leaves a legacy. The world may not see the work you're doing in the dark, but the results will speak for themselves in the light. And as your character is forged in the fires of adversity, you'll find that discipline, mastery, and emotional intelligence become your next great assets. These are the tools that will carry you even further on your journey to lasting wealth. There's a point on the path to wealth where the conversation shifts from what you want to what you're willing to master. It's no longer about chasing every new opportunity or dabbling in a dozen directions. Instead, you become obsessed with depth, digging into your craft, refining your skills, and building a foundation so solid that nothing can shake it. If you're starting to feel this pull toward mastery, discipline, and emotional intelligence, you're experiencing another powerful sign that you're moving into the rare air where true wealth is created. Mastery is not about being a jack of all trades. It's about choosing your lane and going all in. You realize that surface-level effort produces surface-level results, but depth creates dominion. The world rewards those who are exceptional at something, not those who are average at everything. You begin to focus your energy, your study, and your practice on the areas that matter most. You're no longer distracted by trends or the latest shiny object. You've chosen your vehicle, your mission, and now you're committed to digging deep, building expertise, and becoming irreplaceable. This journey toward mastery demands discipline. Discipline is not a punishment, it's a privilege. It's the structure that protects your time, your energy, and your focus. You start to see discipline as the invisible force behind every great achievement. It's what gets you up early, keeps you working when motivation fades, and pushes you to finish what you start. You realize that without discipline, nothing great can be sustained, but with it, everything becomes possible. Your mornings become more structured, your environment more intentional, your calendar more organized. You stop waiting for inspiration and start relying on systems. You track your inputs, measure your progress, and hold yourself accountable to the standards you've set. You understand that freedom is not the absence of structure, but the result of it. The man who cannot be responsible cannot be rich, because wealth will always flee a life of disorder. But wealth is drawn to discipline, to stewardship, to intentionality. As you build discipline, you also develop emotional intelligence. You learn to regulate your emotions, to respond instead of react, to make decisions based on principle rather than pressure. Where you once panicked, now you pause. Where you once internalized setbacks, now you investigate and extract the lesson. You understand that emotional intelligence is not weakness, it's a weapon. It allows you to move strategically when others are driven by impulse. It gives you the power to lead, to build, and to multiply. You start to see that every action you take is either an asset or a liability. Every habit either compounds for you or against you. You become more intentional with your choices, making decisions from your future self, not your current feelings. This is the pivot that most never make, the moment when your vision becomes louder than your emotion, when your why outweighs your weakness, when you choose based on outcome, not comfort. You also begin to multiply your value, not just your money. You invest in learning, in building systems, in creating assets that can grow without your constant involvement. You understand that wealthy minds don't just spend, they multiply. Poor minds only consume, chasing the next thrill or dopamine hit. But you delay gratification in favor of multiplication. You study instead of scroll, build instead of escape, invest your energy instead of draining it. This is the stage where you become impossible to unseat. You're no longer shaken by delay, discouraged by rejection, or broken by setbacks. You've trained your mind to interpret all pain as preparation. You've mastered the ability to extract profit from adversity, to turn resistance into results, loss into leverage, and delay into direction. Excellence becomes your default, not something you do when you feel like it, but who you are, even when no one's looking. You also start to see the power of systems over goals. Goals inspire, but systems build. You stop talking about what you want to achieve and start building the daily habits and routines that make achievement inevitable. You stack small wins, knowing that the compound effect of daily discipline will always beat the flash-in-the-pan success story. You're not building for next week, you're building for your legacy. As you continue to master your craft, discipline your habits, and sharpen your emotional intelligence, you become a magnet for lasting wealth. The world may not notice the work you're doing in private, but the results will speak for themselves in public. You're not here to impress, you're here to last. And that long-game posture is what makes wealth inevitable. If you're noticing these shifts, if you're becoming more disciplined, more focused, more emotionally intelligent, know this: you are already on the path to wealth. You're building the internal infrastructure that can support abundance, not just for a season, but for a lifetime. And as you continue to grow in mastery, discipline, and emotional intelligence, you'll find that your identity, your results, and your legacy all rise to meet the standards you've set. But as you master yourself, another transformation begins. The internal shift becomes so powerful that it starts to shape your reality, making wealth not just a possibility, but an inevitability. And that's where the journey reaches its most profound stage. There's a moment on the journey to wealth that's almost impossible to describe to anyone who hasn't experienced it. It's not marked by a sudden windfall or a dramatic change in your circumstances. Instead, it's a quiet internal shift, a sense that something fundamental inside you has changed. If you're starting to feel this, if you sense that your identity, your habits, and your standards have all been elevated, you're witnessing the most powerful sign of all. Wealth is no longer just a possibility for you. It's becoming inevitable. This shift doesn't arrive with applause or recognition. In fact, it often happens in silence when no one else is watching. You begin to notice that your decisions are no longer made from a place of lack or fear, but from a place of abundance and certainty. You stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, is this aligned with the person I'm becoming? You no longer budget for your fears, you invest in your faith. Every choice, every action, every word is filtered through the lens of your future self, the version of you who already has what you desire. You realize that wealth is not something you chase, but something you attract by who you become. The world is full of people running after money, hopping for a lucky break, desperate for validation. But you've discovered the secret. When you align your thoughts, your actions, and your standards with abundance, money begins to chase you. You become the kind of person that opportunities seek out, that resources flow toward, that success gravitates to naturally. This internal shift is reflected in the way you start your day. Mornings are no longer a rush of obligation, but a sacred time to set your intentions. You rise with purpose, not panic. You prepare, not react. You lead your day instead of waiting to be led by it. Each morning becomes a declaration that you are in control, that you are building something meaningful, that you are worthy of the wealth you're creating. Over time, these small acts of intention compound into a force that no external circumstance can stop. You also notice that your goals have changed. Where once you chase status or material possessions to feel powerful, now you pursue significance. You understand that real power is the ability to control yourself, to need less, to be unmoved by the opinions or temptations of others. This is the posture of mastery, the realization that the man who needs nothing is the most powerful man alive. He cannot be manipulated, distracted, or bought. And because of that, wealth is drawn to him effortlessly. Your relationship with money transforms as well. You no longer see it as a savior or a source of identity, but as a tool to amplify your impact. You ask, what can I give that multiplies? Instead of, what can I get? You understand that the world rewards those who create value, who solve problems, who serve others with excellence. Every day you sharpen your skills, deepen your thinking, and speak with more clarity. You become a magnet for abundance, not because you're lucky, but because you've become useful. Perhaps the most profound part of this shift is the change in your self-talk. You stop saying, I'm trying, and start saying, I'm becoming. You don't hope for success, you expect it. You walk, work, and plan as if your vision is already real. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. The world responds to those who move with conviction, who act as if the outcome is inevitable. Energy doesn't lie. When your mind is made up, reality bends to match. You also develop a new relationship with solitude. Where once you feared being alone, now you cherish it. Solitude becomes your workshop, your training ground, your altar of refinement. You use quiet moments to reflect, to plan, to build in the dark so you can shine in the light. You stop outsourcing your discipline, stop waiting for reminders or external motivation. You honor your word even in private. When your private behavior aligns with your public declaration, you become unstoppable. This is the essence of congruence. One mind, one mission, one man. You no longer live with a split personality, saying one thing and doing another. You've developed vision, not the kind sold on motivational posters, but the kind written into your spirit. You see your future before it's visible. You plant seeds when others are complaining about the weather. And because of that, you will reap what others only dream about, not by luck, but by law. The law of cause and effect, the law of belief, the law of responsibility. You become impossible to unseat. Delays don't shake you. Rejection doesn't discourage you. Setbacks don't break you. You've trained your mind to interpret all pain as preparation, to extract profit from adversity, to turn resistance into results. Excellence is your default, not something you do when you feel like it, but who you are even when no one's looking. If you're feeling this internal shift, if you're making decisions from your future self, if you're investing in your faith, if you're moving with rhythm instead of rush, know this: you are already on the path to wealth. The world may not see it yet, but the transformation is real. You've become the kind of person wealth was designed to serve. And as you continue to walk this path every day, every habit, every intention is confirmation that your success is not just possible, it's inevitable. But as this internal shift solidifies, you'll find that the world begins to respond in kind. The opportunities, the resources, the relationships you need will start to appear almost as if by magic. And that's when you'll know without a doubt that you've crossed the threshold from hopping for wealth to embodying it. The journey doesn't end here, it only gets more profound, because now you're not just building wealth, you're building a legacy. If you've made it this far, you're already different from most. The world is filled with people who want wealth, who dream of abundance, who wish for a life of freedom and impact. But very few are willing to look beneath the surface, to recognize the subtle, unseen signs that true wealth is already taking root within them. If you're seeing these signs in your own life, if you feel the discomfort with mediocrity, the sacredness of your time, the sharpening of your focus, the shift in your identity, the elevation of your circle, the forging of your character, the discipline of your habits, and the inevitability of your internal shift, then you are not just on the path to wealth. You are becoming the very person that wealth is searching for. This journey is not about chasing money for its own sake. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts abundance, who multiplies value, who leaves a mark that outlasts their own lifetime. The world may not notice the changes you're making. There may be no applause, no headlines, no instant validation. But wealth always notices. It's drawn to those who are deliberate, who are disciplined, who are aligned in thought, word, and action. Every day you choose growth over comfort. Every time you say no to distraction and yes to your vision, you are sending a signal to the universe that you are ready for more. You might not see the results immediately. The seeds you're planting today may take months, even years to bear fruit. But that's the nature of true wealth. It's built quietly, patiently, and with unwavering faith. The man who rises early, who studies instead of complains, who executes instead of hesitates, who speaks truth and lives it, is the man who will one day wake up to a life most only dream about. You don't owe the world an explanation for your discipline. You don't owe anyone proof of your progress. You owe yourself consistency, follow through, and the commitment to keep building, even when no one is watching. There will be days when the journey feels lonely. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, when setbacks threat to shake your resolve, when the old habits and old voices try to pull you back. But remember, every challenge is a test, every delay is a lesson, every obstacle is an opportunity to prove to yourself that you are no longer the person you once were. You are not building for applause, you are building for legacy. The world may not see the hours you spend refining your craft, the sacrifices you make, the standards you uphold, but wealth does, and it rewards those who persist. The most powerful confirmation that you're on the right path isn't found in your bank account or your possessions. It's found in the quiet confidence that grows inside you. It's the sense of alignment you feel when your actions match your intentions, when your habits reflect your highest standards, when your vision for the future is so clear that nothing can distract you from it. This is the wealth that can never be taken away, the wealth of character, of discipline, of purpose. You've learned that real freedom isn't about having more, but about needing less. You've discovered that the most dangerous man is the one who cannot be manipulated, who cannot be bought, who cannot be distracted from his mission. You've realized that the world is built not by those who wish for riches, but by those who become useful, who serve, who create value that multiplies. Every day you sharpen your mind, refine your skills, and speak with more clarity, you are preparing for magnitude. And as you continue to walk this path, you'll notice something extraordinary. The world begins to respond to your seriousness. Opportunities appear where there were none before. People of influence and integrity are drawn to your energy. Resources flow to you not because you're lucky, but because you've become the kind of person who can be trusted with more. You are no longer chasing money. You are becoming the kind of man money chases. Let this be your reminder. The journey to wealth is not a sprint, but a marathon. It's not about quick wins or shortcuts, but about the daily, deliberate choices that compound over time. Every morning you rise with intention, every evening you reflect with gratitude, every moment you choose growth over comfort, you are building a legacy that will outlast you. The man you are becoming is already inside you. He's the one who rises early, who studies, who executes, who speaks and lives truth. He doesn't just wear success, he embodies it. So keep going, stand tall, walk firm, keep building even when the world isn't watching, because wealth has already taken notice. The man you are now, disciplined, aligned, clear, and becoming, is the very man wealth was searching for all along. And as you continue to live these signs, to embody these principles, to walk this path, remember, wealth is no longer a distant dream. It's an inevitability, a natural result of the person you've chosen to become. Your story is still being written, the best chapters are yet to come, and the legacy you're building will echo long after you're gone. That is the true measure of wealth, and that, my friend, is priceless. There's a final, often overlooked stage on the journey to wealth, a stage that transcends numbers, possessions, and even personal achievement. It's the point where your focus shifts from simply accumulating riches to building a legacy that will outlast you. If you're beginning to think about what you'll leave behind, about the impact your life will have on others, you're stepping into the rarest territory of all. This is the next level, the place where wealth becomes more than a personal victory. It becomes a force for generational change. At this stage, you start to realize that true wealth is measured not by what you keep, but by what you give, what you build, and what you inspire in others. The world is full of people who chase money for themselves, but the ones who are remembered, the ones who shape history, are those who use their abundance to lift others higher. You begin to ask bigger questions. What will my children inherit, not just in assets, but in values, in wisdom, in opportunity? How will my work ripple out into the world long after I'm gone? What kind of example am I setting for those who look up to me, even if they never meet me? This is where your habits, your discipline, and your standards take on a new significance. You're no longer just building for yourself. Every choice you make, every system you create, every lesson you learn becomes a blueprint for those who will follow. You understand that legacy is not an accident. It's the result of intentional living, of daily decisions made with the future in mind. You start to see your life as a story, one that others will read, learn from, and be inspired by. You also become more aware of your influence. Whether you realize it or not, someone is always watching. It might be your children, your team, your community, or even strangers who are quietly observing how you move through the world. You recognize that your actions, your words, and your attitudes set a standard. You become more mindful of the example you're setting, knowing that your legacy is being built in the small moments as much as the big ones. At this level, your relationship with wealth matures even further. You see money as a tool for impact, a resource to be stewarded wisely, a means to create opportunities for others. You look for ways to multiply your influence, not just through financial investments, but through mentorship, through service, through sharing your knowledge and experience. You understand that the greatest fortunes are not just passed down in bank accounts, but in mindsets, in habits, in the courage to dream bigger and do better. You also become a guardian of culture. Within your family, your business, your community, you set the tone for what is possible, for what is acceptable, for what is expected. You teach by example, showing that integrity, resilience, and generosity are not just ideals but daily practices. You create traditions, rituals, and standards that will guide those who come after you long after you're gone. This is the stage where you start to think in generations, not just years. You plan not just for your own comfort, but for the security and empowerment of those who will inherit your legacy. You invest in education, in health, and relationships, knowing that these are the true assets that compound over time. You build structures, businesses, foundations, systems that can endure beyond your lifetime. You become less concerned with recognition and more focused on significance. You also embrace the responsibility that comes with abundance. You understand that to whom much is given, much is required. You look for ways to give back, to serve, to make a difference in the lives of others. You realize that your success is not just for you, it's a platform to create positive change, to open doors for those who might never have had the chance otherwise. You become a force for good, using your resources, your wisdom, and your influence to leave the world better than you found it. But perhaps the most profound realization at this stage is that legacy is not just about what you do, but about who you become. The habits you cultivate, the character you develop, the love you give, and the courage you show, these are the things that will echo through generations. You understand that your greatest contribution may not be something you build, but someone you inspire, someone you mentor, someone you empower to reach heights you never imagined. If you're starting to think this way, if you're planning for a future you may never see, if you're building for people you may never meet, if you're living each day with the awareness that your life is a message, then you have truly reached the next level. You are no longer just wealthy. You are a builder of legacy, a creator of culture, a steward of abundance. And as you continue on this path, remember, the world needs more people like you. People who are willing to do the hard work to set the standard, to build not just for themselves but for everyone who will come after. Your story is not just your own, it's a chapter in the greater story of humanity. The seeds you plant today will become the forests that shelter generations. The values you live by will become the compass for those who follow. So keep building, keep giving, keep leading with integrity and vision, because the legacy you leave will be the true measure of your wealth, and that, more than any number in a bank account, is what will make your life truly unforgettable.